We have never experienced something like this in recorded history, hence it's acceptable to be terrified. I want to underline that I haven't sold anything short, but I am worried about the global bond market. Bond prices have never been this high in various nations, including Korea, New Zealand, and many more. It's safe to conclude that the stock market is suffering a bubble. These equities, including Amazon, Incent, and Samsung, are witnessing daily price increases. Hence, we may argue that these stocks are performing a bubble. On the other hand, numerous shares are still dropping. So we may argue that the market isn't totally busted yet. Commodities, property bonds, and the whole market are witnessing bubbles. Silver has decreased by percent from its all-time high, sugar by percent, and oil by percent. I mean, these are bubble statistics when you talk about tremendous large falls, historic dips. But with all the money being created, the asset class in the world that I love at the moment would be commodities because they're cheap when everything else is booming. I do own stocks. I do own stocks in countries like China, Russia, Japan, other places. But I'm not rushing out to purchase unless I discover something really wonderful. Well, I said I'm not short. I know it's going to end poorly. I still, if something good comes up, that's nice. I'll buy it. But Adam, I know this is going to end very, very, very terribly. To repeat, the better it gets, the worst it's going to become when it comes to an end. Since debt has soared everywhere, even China, which didn't have debt years ago, but now has a lot of it, I'm concerned that we'll have the worst bear market in my lifetime when this crisis ends. Everyone is anxious about who will save us from this financial disaster. Since the Chinese began spending their enormous savings account, they no longer have much to spare. The issue then becomes, who will put that money aside for the future? The Chinese helped us in this position. Kim Jong-il. I believe North Korea doesn't have a lot of debt, but I don't think they have enough money stowed away to save us. Unlike the Chinese, I don't think they have a savings account for emergencies. What are your opinions on whether this will lead to a debt crisis or excessive money printing? I don't trust the persons you listed, therefore I will state that I have no faith in them. Adam, it's a good time to be old in America because I don't have to pay for all of this. When it comes to an end, my children, oh my gosh, the problems my children are going to run into in their lifetimes because of what these girl clowns are doing now. So I say it's good to be old. But you're right, it's going to end someday, and it's going to badly when it ends. You said either currency collapse or economic collapse. You can have both. You can have one and then it leads to another. In the S, we had both, for instance, around the world. And then we had war. It's shooting war. And that's the really bad news is often in history. When you have really, really bad times, especially worldwide, it winds up in shooting wars. It certainly did after the S. It's not good. I don't see good news. I repeat that in and N, we had horrible problems with too much debt. Since then, the debt has gone through the roof by unbelievable amounts, and I know that's going to end badly if we know what's going on. We'll get worried. And if we get worried, we'll probably get prepared. Then we might survive. Some people came out of the SEI very rich. Most didn't. Most lost huge amounts of money. But in Iceland went bankrupt, nobody cared. And a few months later, Ireland went bankrupt. Some noticed. Few months later, Bear Stearns went back. Now we're starting to notice, and then BlackRock went bankrupt in the big bank in England. And then eventually Lehman Brothers went, well, then it's on the evening news, then everybody knows. So my point is, these things snowball, and they start where we're not looking. And it may have already started for all I know. I've seen some small places having problems. But as I say, I'm not selling short yet because I know how much money these guys can print. And what I would suspect is going to happen, Adam, is somewhere along the line next month, stocks go down in lots of places. Well, then they're going to really panic because they want to keep their jobs. And so they're going to print even more money. And so we'll have a rally. We have a rally. But I would suspect that that would be the last rally because it's only so much. I mean, eventually the markets say, wait a minute, guys, we've seen this movie before. We know how it ends. We don't care how much money you print. Do you worry at all about the societal implications about what's going on here? Absolutely. History is pretty clear that when you have bad times, there is usually social unrest. People aren't happy. And if we do, in fact, have the worst bear market of my lifetime, which I don't see how we can avoid, when that comes, there are going to be a lot of very, very unhappy and angry people. And one difference in now and the past is people really get angry. Now they think that you can't do that to me. In the S, people were a little more disciplined, a little more understanding of what was going on in the world. They weren't happy. There were protests. There was some VI, not much violence in the U.S. anyway, since that's what we're talking about. But people were a bit more accepting of the system. No, Adam, look out the window. Nobody accepts anything. Now, you can't do that to me. It's your fault. It's not my fault. So no, we're certainly going to have social unrest, certainly in the U.S., but in other countries as well. You find out what's going on. If you do, you'll get worried and then you'll get prepared because, Adam, it's very clear this history shows that when things go really wrong, what history shows. First of all, politicians blame foreigners. They always blame the foreigners because that's easy to do. But then it also leads to unhappy people and social unrest. I mean, I guess the main lesson of history out of is people don't learn the lessons of history. I mean, I could sit here and tell you all day. We had a president recently who either didn't know history or thought he was smarter than history. And it didn't matter. Well, I know history smarter than I am, and I know it matters. And I know it always goes that way, that people get very unhappy. And they look for scapegoats, and then it's not good. They've already got into trillions, which you and I never could have conceived of, most people could not have conceived of, but they don't want to stop. So I'm wondering what's after trillions. We're going to learn new languages, new vocabulary here in the next year or two. If they keep going the way they're going, nearly every government, every central bank in the world has been printing huge amounts of money and borrowing and spending huge amounts of money. It's never happened like this in the history of the world. Never in recorded history, we've seen so much excess. I'll call it excess. They think it's normal. They think it's fine. And this has caused many markets to go up a lot. You know, if you want to build a bridge, it takes a long time. But if you want to invest and you have a lot of money floating around, you just go on the internet and in 5 seconds you can invest in anything you want to. And that's what's been happening. And that's what's continuing to happen. There might be signs that's beginning to slow down. The Chinese seem to be cutting back some, not a lot. Well, not a lot, but they're cutting back. They're not expanding other countries. Say they're cutting back. And the U.S. says, oh, maybe we should cut back someday. But in the meantime, there's gigantic amounts of money floating around. It's going into markets. It's going into the real economy as well. It's artificial. If you see some of the things that, the shipping business is just unbelievably hot right now because there's so much money floating around. The bad news is these things always end. And the better they get, the worse they get when they end. Thanks for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Also, hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Your support means the world to us. See you in the next video.